All right, this podcast is number 841. The name of it is Listen Next 841. It is a part of my podcast series, Speaking to the CIA. You can find me at speakingtothecia.com or christinastation918.com. So I'm going to continue here. Okay, so this recording is going to be more, again, about Gene Roberts stalking cartel family lines. Okay, and she's been stalking them for decades, trying to undermine them, trying to control them, trying to frame them. Okay, again, everybody knows that the cartel is a cartel. Do they commit crime? They commit crime. I'm not focused on everybody else. Again, remember what Gene did with the word usual? Use you all. Usual suspects. I am not focused on the cartel. I am focused on Gene Roberts Manson occult, who is funded by the KKK and the KKK. Today and every day, every time I make a podcast, I am turning in Jean Jernigan Roberts and her Manson occult / KKK. Okay, so, all right, Nestle, the Nestle Corporation. Okay, so I know you guys probably know and have researched a ton at this point inside your own company, and you have probably gone through every shareholder and stockholder there is, I imagine, like all big corporations. So I want to point out one example of something that I just decoded. Another example of Gene using ICE and infiltrating inside corporations, using food to stalk people, and also using food to brag about, committing terrorism, trying to frame people, and also, as you know what she always does with food, she uses it to buy and sell babies, children, and adults. There's even, remember you guys see my previous podcasts on this, she even recently marketed something called pomegranate 7-Up. I could not believe it. She's bragging about trafficking me as a child. See my podcast about the pomegranate trees in the backyard at 306 East and Cottonwood. It was one of the most bizarre things that's happened in my life. I used to eat the pomegranates that were growing in the backyard. They were on the neighbor's tree when they would hang over the fence, and I would wait till they would hang low, and I would pull them off the tree and I would eat them. One time I opened a pomegranate and there was a spider inside it. And I could not believe that there was a spider in the middle of the pomegranate. I was like, how could a spider grow inside a pomegranate? Which, going back in time, she's saying something grisly and gory. Just like those rumors that used to swirl around in the 70s and 80s, which she probably started too, where they would put, somehow people would have spider eggs inserted in their cheeks, and spiders would come out of their cheeks, if you guys remember that. So she's saying something about the brain. And then later on, her controlling my parents, icing my parents, and then in 6th grade, I go to Pomeroy. So Anyway, so she's selling pomegranates. So I see the pomegranate 7-Up for sale. And then also goes to the 7-Up. That was Jeff's, my stepdad. That was his favorite soft drink, 7-Up. We always had it in the house. And then it also goes to, you could see she was using ice on my mom and dad, and you could see she was using ice on my school teachers, and what she was doing was using MK Ultra to try to drive in and push in psychological conditioning. Because in grade school, when I was in 3rd grade, one of the games we used to have to play, I couldn't stand it. I hated it. It was the bane of my existence. Just like having to frickin' square dance in PE. I couldn't stand it. We used to have to play Heads Up 7-Up in class. And what the teacher would have us do is everybody had to put their heads down on the desk. Put your hands on the desk, put your heads down on the desk, close your eyes, no talking, total silence. And then someone would walk around the room, and then they would tap you, and then you would put your thumb up, and then they would get done, and then they would call Heads Up 7-Up. And then, I'll my further decode historically what Gene also did, which all of this causes me major amounts of grief and pain. Her bragging about stalking and trafficking me and my family. And then also what she did to generations of people before me. Not just in my family, but I'm talking about the entire United States. Her stalking specific family lines in the United States of America. Because that's what Manson Ku Klux Klan does. And it revolves around gunny sacking, abducting, buying, selling children and babies, and killing children historically. And Jean does that present day. She did that to me. She literally thinks she owns my family. The way she purchased me was, I still live with my mom and dad. I grew up with my family. But she still bought and purchased me before I was born. She bought rights to my brain and body, claiming she owns me when she had already stolen AI. She was probably trying to make it look legal somehow. She literally purchased me as a child. And then I find out she claims she owns my whole family. That is what Ku Klux Klan Charles Manson does. They still do that present day. Only you can't see it because she's controlling you with ice. And she's done that to me my entire life. So it's layers of pain. And then she markets that product recently, and I was about to puke. She's just hanging out with the Manson KKK, just having a good old time, thinking she's going to get away with all of it. But anyway, so Nestle. So here's an example of what she did with one of your products. So Jack's Pizza. Now, Jean, excellent pizza. Nestle, you have excellent products. Jack's Pizza. Okay, so Jean refers to herself, I've decoded this, she refers to herself as Jack the Ripper. Okay, she's got a bunch of different aliases. One of her aliases is Jack the Ripper. Now, from my decoding, I also decoded Jack the Ripper. He used to write on the walls And those are ciphers, and I decoded those ciphers. And I decoded as much as I possibly can, and I know there's tons. You have to see my previous podcast on it. She is, as far as I know, as I was told, Jack the Ripper is in her family line. She is related to Jack the Ripper. Now, what she has done present day, and this is what the way she wrote these ciphers, is she pretends that these ciphers are the cartels, and she keeps going, no, the cartel is Jack the Ripper. Where Jack the Ripper is Jack the Ripper, he's notorious. So I'm sure people use Jack the Ripper as names, but that doesn't mean the cartel did that. And if they would have done that, that doesn't mean they did that. That's Jean's, one of Jean's aliases. She also calls herself Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I decoded that. That's another one of Jean's aliases. Another alias of hers that I also decoded is Jack and Jill. And you know Andrew Dice Clay's adult nursery rhymes, his funny nursery rhymes he's famous for. And the Jack and Jill one, Jack and Jill both went up the hill, both with $1.25. Jill came down with $2.50. So she's using all of that. So those are Jean Jernigan Roberts' aliases. And she is stalking the cartel. So let me go through this. So, all right, so where do I start with here? Okay, so let me go through this. So this one, the Jack's Pizza, is easy to figure out. You're going to just want to go research Jack's Pizza, and you're going to see everything in it. You're going to want to also add in her using, her icing me when I was little, playing on the front porch at 306 East Street in Globe, Arizona. Playing with Jax. Remember I told you I decoded a bunch of terrorism ciphers of hers out of it? Playing with a kaleidoscope and playing with pickup sticks. I always played with toys on the front porch, and I decoded a bunch of terrorism that she planned to commit with these toys, okay? Which is 9/11, the World Trade Center attack, future terror plots, all kinds of things going on. Okay, so you're going to want to note that. And also note the pickup sticks goes to Pico Union, okay? Then also, the Los Angeles Zoo is in this. So when I was little, my mom and Jeff, we went to San Diego to go see my Aunt Susan, which is my Uncle Jeff's sister, Susan Cook. We went to go see her in Los Angeles, and she gave my mom and my stepdad the big white couch, and you want to see all decode the white sofa. See all of my decode of Jean Robert Cypher's stalking Jeff Cook's side of the family and my mom. Okay, so she gave me a set of markers, which I loved. She was a very cool aunt. Like, I loved her. She gave me Mr. Sketch markers, and I decoded those. I decoded the box, I just decoded those. And they were gigantic colored markers, and they were scented. They all had different smells. Okay, and she's also the one, my Aunt Susan also gave me a Grover from Sesame Street. And I used to have, like, remember I told you I used to have battles with, not battles, but I would be like between Drunk Monkey and Grover. Like, Grover's new, and I've had Drunk Monkey forever. Grover needs to be my new favorite because he's brand new, but I couldn't let Drunk Monkey go. So I would always like feel guilty if I was playing with Grover and I didn't have Drunk Monkey. Okay, so she was messing with me with all of this, but this is my childhood, and these are precious memories of mine, and I decoded a bunch around Grover, too. I decoded a bunch from my drunk monkey and a bunch from Grover. Okay, so anyway, so we went to the Los Angeles Zoo. And remember I told you I stood on a bridge and there were alligators going underneath it, and I was scared to death that they were going to eat me? Okay, so in this also, so I'm going to go through all the decode that I see also in this, with what you'll also pick up on in researching Jack's Pizza history. So take the word Salvadoran, okay, so which is Sinola, okay, so you can see what she's doing to using ice to rip at the cartel. So you're going to want to put parentheses around the S. You're going to want to put parentheses around Alva. You're going to want to put parentheses around V, and then DO, and then put parentheses around R, then A, then put parentheses around N. In that also, you're going to see one of my classmates in high school, his sister passed away when I was in high school, Dorian Temple. His sister's name was Lisa Temple. See my previous podcast. DeLorean. Okay, DeLorean was the car used in Back to the Future. And who starred in Back to the Future? Michael J. Fox. And you're going to want to see all my previous podcasts there. So also in this, going back further in time, from when I was really little, when my mom had split up from my dad. And I don't know yet if she was dating Sergio, or if she was dating Sergio at the time, but I was really little. My mom still had her Nova, her red and blue Nova. And we went through the Jack in the Box, and she got steak fingers. It was either Jack in the Box or it was Whataburger, but I get the two confused. Anyway, she ordered steak fingers, and I kept thinking they were bony fingers. Okay, you're going to see on my podcast on bony fingers, okay? So the bony fingers also goes to her assaulting me at 2 months old. She's trying to frame the Masons, okay? So 20, which is the Masons symbol, and then number 2 pencil, then Jack in the Box, then also in this is 300, also Oklahoma City bombing, then 38, and then 3 plus 8 is 11, and then you know how she uses the 11, the lightning bolt, the lightning bolt, 2 lightning bolts, and 3 lightning bolts. I don't know the difference between the 2 lightning bolts and the 3 lightning bolts. As I'm decoding this, I'm like, I can't decipher the difference. I know they mean 2 different things. I know it's both Ku Klux Klan, but she uses the lightning bolt as Ku Klux Klan. And then sometimes there's 3 lightning bolts. Okay, ones are lightning bolts. Okay, so the 3 lightning bolts, I'm like, what is that? Now, present day, looking back at my ciphers, maybe she is saying NWO Illuminati. Maybe she is saying Charles Manson. It's like an extra dose of Ku Klux Klan. Okay, then also Ahura. I want to point that out. Ahura means now. Rearrange the letters, NWO. So Jean using Spanish. Okay, Spanish and English isn't the only language she has used around the world where she has hid the constructs of her future terror plot in. There's not any language anywhere that she hasn't torn up. in preparation and planning for the end of the world, her world dominion plot. So, see what I'm saying with Ahura? Also, Cassos, Cassos, Cassos means things. So again, you can see Jean Jernigan Roberts is a liar. Jean Jernigan Roberts is an abuser. In Cassos, you should see her Charles Manson signature. She's using Linda Casa Bien. And also, back to the 70s when I was little, all this all links together. Her using Casio, the brand name Casio as a product, as a theme. Also, I found in here Revelations. This is connected, okay? So I'm going to give you what this is. I found the connection to it. Biblical scholars will be able to figure out more. So this is something that she has encoded in the Bible. Only biblical people would be able to tell you if Jean tampered with the Bible or if this is biblical from God and she stole it and used it for her world terror plot, or if they'll be able to tell you who did it, the bad guy or the good, if it was God or if it was Jean infiltrating the Bible somehow. But like I told you before, she is a Satanist. So how can, and this is what I surmise to, is her messing with the Bible. God says Jean loses in the end. God is victorious. So it wouldn't matter what she did because her occult is surrounded by people who love God. So she's not accomplishing anything. So anyway, let me give you the scripture that I found that's connected, and then you can see how she may have used this, and then how she plans to use this in the future, and you can figure out what I always try to figure out, as much as I can figure out, with the knowledge that I know. What did Jean do? And then what does God mean? So, Revelations 2:18, okay, is in W, and then you add a 00, and then there's moon in that, and then that connects to Revelation 6:12, okay? Then there's 4 and 6 in that. That is DF. So she's using me again as a sacrifice here. She's making a reference to me. I was 12 years old. I was in 6th grade, and I went to Hartford Elementary. So again, it shows you Jean Roberts and her Manson occult has been stalking me all of my life. Okay? So this connects to Daniel 2:41. So in that you see also the 43, and then you see 8:30, and then you also see XO, and then you see 8:5, and then you know 8 and 5 is 13, and then also pointing out what we use throughout history is a blood seal on an envelope. So let me continue here and do this here. So, and then I'll end this recording. So I'm going to move forward now. So when I was in New York and I was working for Kaleida Health, you know, she pre-planned my life. One of the biggest, she's trying to control my speech again. Working at Kaleida was a huge blessing. It was bittersweet. I loved being able to work there. I missed my kids. I wanted my kids with me, and they did not want to be in New York. They had their fill. And I didn't have a way to be back in Oklahoma. It was a horrific situation. It was a bad, bad situation. And it still kills me to this day. And my kids are like, Mom, we know. We just want to have happy, productive lives. And now I'm like, in this past 10 years, do you know that we have been stalked all our lives? She's literally controlling all of us. She's trying to she is, Jean Robertson and Amanda Nicole has stalked us all our lives. She's trying to rip us all from each other. And she's like terrorizing us. Jean Jernigan Roberts needs to be arrested. So, the Kaleida goes to my future working, the kaleidoscope goes to my future working at Kaleida, okay? When I was decoding some of these ciphers, she used hospitals from Kaleida, which is the largest healthcare provider in Western New York. Just like Ochsner is the largest healthcare provider in Louisiana. They're both excellent, excellent, excellent companies. So, anyway, she used them as parts of her planning and theming and planning to do the World Trade Center attack. So when I'm decoding this or going over this memory, I'm like, well, this is no surprise here. So let me turn Jean Roberts in for doing this. So we were in the middle of doing a Cerner conversion. We were doing the whole power chart, the whole suite, all Cerner products. We were only using power chart, and we moved all the hospitals, all the ambulatory clinics, all the area residents, everybody over to everything power chart, like all Cerner products, okay? So it was a big, major conversion, okay? So anyway, one part of this, we were planning out, everybody was working on SurgiNet. It was one of the new parts of Cerner that we were implementing in Kaleida, okay? We implemented in all sorts of products. SurgiNet, FarmNet, RadNet, like everything, okay? So anyway, I was always busy working on everything behind the scenes. SurgiNet, I did not have a grasp on SurgiNet because that wasn't an area that I was familiar with as I was with other parts of PowerChart, nor was I familiar with FarmNet. Okay, so anyway, the clinical informaticists that I work with, this huge group of informaticists, they had me go in and sit in SurgiNet meetings, okay, where they were getting ready to ramp up and roll out SurgiNet. So we've got it constructed, how everybody's going to use it and what roles, and they've got all the programming customized. Everything is done now to go about how to do the training and implementation of it. This is a major, all of this was huge. Thousands of employees. So anyway, so they booked a room. We had several rooms that we booked where everybody would get together and everybody would work on these different products at all different phases of this rollout. So we booked a room over, I believe it was over at Gates. And anyway, we were in the room, and then the back area was the old room that they didn't use anymore. They just used it for meetings and stuff if the conference rooms were booked. Anyway, in the back room, there was like a kitchen sink area. And I walked back there and I was like, oh my God. All of us were looking at this sink and they're like, yeah, I know. We just got to get this cleaned up. We don't know what's going on here. Just like fix this now. You know what I'm saying? So Anyway, the sink was filled with bees. Like they were coming up from the drain. There were bees everywhere. Okay, and so we had to get someone to get it all cleaned up. So anyway, later on, when I worked at Ochsner, she was putting wasps in the vents at Ochsner, and they had a problem of cleaning the wasps out of the vents because they were getting in to the building that I was in. So, and I was in a building that was not inside the hospital. It was an adjacent building. So anyway, what she's doing with that, she did that using ice. Okay, she's real big on the sleeper cell thing. So she's using a 3-prong, she's using a multi-hit and building herself a get out of jail free card, trying to blame the Middle East as part of this. They did not do this. This is ridiculous. The Middle East didn't do any of this. She tried to frame everybody everywhere. So anyway, she's using a 3-prong here by putting the bees in the sink. So one of them is to blame and frame sleeper cells. So it's making a reference of hiding sleeper cells coming up. Okay. And then she acts like the hero. And then she poses as the FBI, claiming that it's cleansing. Okay. She literally tells people that. She tells people she's FBI. And then she tells people that she's cleansing. That I need to be allowed to tell on her because she's just cleansing. That sounds satanic as hell. It would not be the FBI doing that. Jean does pose as the FBI. Jean Roberts is a Satanist. That's satanic. I am literally trying to make reports against her so you will arrest her and her Manson occult. My pizza's burning. Let me turn this off.